Well, hello. Good evening. It is the 2nd of March, um, and I have returned to my home. Um, quite a wonderful outing. Lovely surprise birthday dinner for my wife's friend, longtime friend, and it it was it was really pleasant to just go through the motions of going to a dinner and to experience just a fun night with people that you don't really get to spend a whole lot of time with. Like these are all my wife's friends, but like the husbands and the boyfriends, um, it's it was really pleasant. So, um, yeah, I had a great opportunity just to hang out and socialize and, really meet somebody. So I was seated across from this guy, John, who is very intimate with what my organization does and kind of familiar with like the suite of products that our company offers. And so anyway, it was really fun. My voice is still hoarse, as you can tell, but getting better. And I feel really grateful to get better. But that's not really what I had in mind today. I had the opportunity to find a young man on Reddit and through a kind of unexpected uh, and a little, I don't know, like it's hard to put into words, but uh, undesirable uh, I don't know, his whole like I didn't expect to get to this point where I was talking to this person, but um uh he he posted in a as a life pro tip that he found the meaning of life. But he was 23 years old. But his meaning of life for him, was to, become the best version. I guess I'll just read it. And, he's already deleted the post. So the fact that I have access to it on my phone is just like a unique surprise. But for for me to read it and think, I'll just read it and I'll save myself. I'll save my criticism and critique of I'll save my critique. It took me 10 years purely focus on finding I'll amend some of his words because his writing was pretty poor. But again, just as a someone that writes a lot, someone that's very intimately, I care a lot about the way that writing structure. Anyway, it took me 10 years purely focused on finding the meaning and the truth of this world from 13 to 23. I nearly took my life when I was 13, and I'm starting uh, my journey of learning the truth. I cut everything friends, school, family, etc. and purely focused on learning on the internet and life itself. Yes, it's truly nothing. Yes, nothing matters, no meaning whatsoever. First, I thought religion is the answer, and I learned about every religion as possible and all its required faith. No, it's just simple. If something requires faith, then it is not considered the truth. It took me maybe 5 years or so for that conclusion. Then I moved on to philosophy. Yes, you named it, and I learned a bunch of them. The conclusion is the best one that I found is existentialism, which is we are the one that we choose to give our lives meaning. It is our own choice. That took 2 years or so. So I just saved you 7 years of your life to you readers, and here we go. I spent another 5 years to find my own purpose while learning the philosophy. Yes, I'm already trying to find my own purpose before I learn about philosophy. Finally, I found the best one among all of my purpose of life. My life goal is the journey of reaching my fullest potential. Um, how it looks like is truly unique to myself. You need to find your own. I hope it would help you somehow. Oh, by the way, for religion, I pick Islam, just in case. because it's the closest one to truth for me, without any bias. Other religion can be countered easily, but Islam is the hardest one because it is not just faith. It's a combination of both faith and fact. But you still need to have faith though. Okay, good luck. I open for other perspectives and knowledge in the comments. It could be about spirituality or anything that could help me strengthen my life purpose. Thank you. So he posted this life pro tip and then just talked about himself. So really wasn't a pro tip. And of course, the comment section tore him up. And listen, this isn't a critique of every online goofball that happens to post, this conceivably wise thing. But I was amongst the spectators that said, you need to go live your life. Life is to be lived. That's where you really truly gain your perspective. And he himself didn't know how to respond. He didn't actually do anything with it. He argued with everybody. So for somebody that is a seeker of truth, a seeker of knowledge, to outwardly reject, how do I say this? To argue with every single person that came across and said, you need to live your life. At 23, I didn't know anything. Although at 23, I had done more with my life than most people that are 23, like I had joined the military, I had seen other countries, I'd experienced other cultures, and it just goes to show you that you can learn as many things as you desire in a book, but life experience and living in the world is going to free you it's going to create different connections in what it really is to be a human being and what it is to live this life. Now, I have nothing to say about his religion, although I will say that in his responses, there was a person that happened to agree with me as I was continuing to discuss this. He said, he provided a quote from the Quran, which I thought was interesting. He said, "O mankind, indeed we have created you from male and female and made you peoples and tribes that you may know one another." So directly from the Islamic faith, someone quoting it saying, you should be interacting and learning from one another. And listen, I have no qualms with this young man thinking that he knows something. But the most important thing is that as you go through life, you start to gain that perspective and understanding. It conditions you, certainly. It is the, we have this screen of perception, a lens of perception, like a prescription, right? It changes over time. And we as individuals have to learn how to be, we have to learn how to clean this lens sometimes, to discard some of the fragments or maybe altogether replace it. But that takes time, and it only takes time as you continue to grow and you continue to learn and love and suffer. And so I happened to respond with my response, and I'll read that because it is so powerful, and I took a lot of time, and his only response was like, well, you didn't even so here we go. Let me cough first. You're offering life pro tips without having lived life. No one owes you an explanation about why you're wrong. It's up to you to learn. Do you really not see the fallacy in trying to suggest you know anything about this life or the worldly experience? Who wrote the things you learned from? Men and women who gained experience, loved, fought, dreamed, failed, and died in the pursuit of something worthwhile. Buddha didn't just go sit under a tree to find something or find enlightenment after reading a bunch of books. With all his princely riches, he walked outside the palace to recognize death and suffering existed. Then he sat with people and exposed himself to in-person teachings for many years before he took his seat under the Bodhi tree. Full beings, you see. Not some 23-year-old who sat behind a computer with $5 internet wisdom. and made an attempt to pass it off as something other than that. It's the difference between book smarts and street smarts. I'll tell you, by the age of 23, I had seen more of the world than my peers and exposed myself to the richness of life in ways that typical people become envious. My wealth is experience. Now, 12 years later, I've seen the marvels of growing into someone that I love and who is loved. I've witnessed the struggle of pregnancy and the beautiful of holding your child for the first time. I know unconditional love, agape, and the challenge of navigating relationships with people who have their own problems. I've breached personal reality to see a parent as an individual entity, wept while comprehending the gravity of bringing a child into the world, knowing one day they will die. Maybe ego does take over from time to time, but that's okay. Behind the facade, made from thoughts and discernment of a personality, there is a well-intentioned being who has been adorned by the intimacy of understanding a life lived. What have you actually done that offers you any true insight? Nothing from your statements tell me you've gathered anything but a tiny thread without comprehending its part in the tapestry of life. That's why people mocked you in the comments. You haven't fallen in love and written a poem to your beloved. You don't know the richness of our existence in any meaningful way. If you know God, then why do you avoid the very universe he created for you? I said created. I didn't say he. Anyway, I just slipped. If you know anything, you fail to demonstrate it to anyone in your post or through your argumentative and headstrong responses. You should have read more about rhetoric. It's for all these reasons that I tell you to go get a life. Then, with that life, you find real awareness. You sit in your predicament with all the stuff and love it because it is a function of our expanded consciousness. That's the life experience you're missing out on. And then he continued to argue. You still didn't give any sort of solid argument and totally dismissed. Only this group is like this. Other groups are more engaging and discuss. They even see, they even dislike a positive comment in this group. First of all, I'll tell you, he's never posted anything anywhere else ever, and all of his comments are always argumentative. So I don't know who this person posted, but it's wild. But living life is living life. That's what it's for. You're here to experience this life, to take it all in, and in your experience start to gain that perspective in which you can look at philosophies with this fuller cup. You know, it is a honing device for all the experiences of life. Ram Dass always said, you have to become somebody before you can become nobody. You can't be enlightened until you have life. You have to experience something, or you have nothing. You have nothing to compare the great, noble existence that is beyond us, right? That is around us at all times. That's something so important. Listen, this, to me, I've had a long day, and I won't excuse it, but it sounds like I'm complaining. It sounds like I'm just here to drag this guy, but I actually feel bad for him because he showed me and everybody there that in his last 10 years, and he went on to say, like, I was a very successful athlete, and I did this, and but like, he didn't. He said he got an award for being the smartest student. I'm sure that he had opportunities to be smart. That doesn't mean intelligence, like being smart at school doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. Full of sports awards. Again, what does that mean? That doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean anything. If you neglect your entire life, you can't become anything. You can't reap the rewards of a life lived if you don't live life. And he's never going to see this, let's be real. You know, he's so deep in his own hole of whatever he's living in. He doesn't know, and he'll never know. It's a sad truth. He's so disillusioned and enchanted by his own story that he'll never really come out of this shell. It'll take some time. Yeah, it makes me think. Hold on one second. I'm gonna cough again because his throat is just like frogging. It makes me think. When I was working in a when I was working in the kitchen, I was working at this vegan restaurant in San Diego, and there was this guy. He was a dishwasher, and eventually became like a line cook along with us. But he he, I was like, I was the military guy. Everyone knew me like that, so it took me a while to eventually, not have that as my identity. But you got to go through what you got to go through to experience the world, so you can then say, oh, like that identity is just, it's in passing. It's not who I need to be. I don't need to be the firm, straight arrow guy all the time. It's part of me, but it's not all of me. But anyway, he said, you really need an ego death, and eventually I had one, and I knew exactly what he meant. I was never able to tell him. He moved on to other things, but I did need that. But this guy needs that. 23 years old. It can sour you to the world if you live in that place where you're always so defensive. I'm listening to a book called Inner Excellence right now, which it's really great, and it talks a lot about the selflessness of like exceptional athletes. This guy, former baseball player, wrote this book, and he's now a coach to professional athletes, mostly focusing on their their mental preparations, and how they approach their exploits and things that they do. But really interesting to hear, like what makes a great professional athlete, in this person's thinking, is not so much the achievements, but actually the selflessness. And so it's just a really interesting thing. And this young man has a lot to learn. And many people said that. Very few felt as if, he had any real sense. But he thought he was going to get a room full of professionals to agree with him. And I'm not a professional. I'm just a man, I'm just a man who's experienced enough. And I didn't need to lock myself in a room to find it. I found it through trial and error, through growth. I became everything that I needed to be. And it didn't take 10 years of book learning, and everyone has their own journey. And I think that maybe we hope that the person we were 10 years ago, 12 years ago, we hope that person, if they saw what you'd become, they would be like, oh, like that makes so much sense. But it takes time to comprehend this, to really appreciate the gravity of our experience and who we truly are. But life is for living. Life is for trying, and to go and live your life, to go and try things and fail at things. That's what makes you better. Iron sharpens iron. We become the best version of ourselves through the strife, through the failure, through the heartbreak. And my cousin's, or my wife's cousin, he recently had a breakup, and I won't go into the details, but he was heartbroken, and as well he should. But I reached out to him, and I was like, hey man, I'm really sorry, like that this is happening to you, and I just want you to know that I'm here for you. If you wouldn't mind me saying, I think it's the best thing for you right now to work on yourself, to find out who you are without her. And in his anger, in his pain, he said, "You're a fucking joke." And I really I get that. I get that. Because um let me drop a quote on you here. Uh Man, do I even find it? Maybe it's in the Google Doc. Let's go check it out. Uh,
You can act all shy, but you know
where is it at?
that I want you. In the dead of night, I want
I guess it's not in here. I know it's in my other. You know what? I might actually have a Google file of that other document. Um, but anyway, I don't worry about it. Oh, here we go. Uh, it's an Egyptian proverb. Actually, in my research, I found this French scholar. She was amazing. She like really started to translate this the Tomb of Luxor, and she was amazing at hieroglyphics. Like her husband, also a French scholar, he he was an Egyptologist. Um, but anyway, she spent a decade studying the Tomb of Luxor and deciphering hieroglyphics. And this proverb, her name was Isha Schwaller de Lubix, if you're interested. Really interesting woman. Probably not a ton of literature on her. It would be very interesting to hear, hear an autobiography or a biography. She's obviously not alive anymore, but this translation. Is it then not a mistake to precipitate the time of awakening? He himself has given the answer he wants to know. As to the rest of the way, not the greatest master can even go one step for his disciple. In himself, he must experience each stage of developing consciousness. Therefore, he will know nothing for which he is not ripe. So good. That was I actually in my book, whatever. Uh, it's in there. So I it's good. It's really good. Um, but that you can't teach someone to become a full being. You can't. They need to learn themselves, and many people go their entire lives without really knowing who they are, and that is it's a shame, but it's not that much of a shame. Like, you know, if we have more than one life, like if we have more than one incarnation, I mean to say, then we have also the opportunity again and again to learn and grow. And when we find ourselves in the space of awareness where we realize, like, oh, this is the dance of this incarnation, like rebirth after rebirth, we figure it out. Maybe we learned it at 23, or 13, or maybe it took us until we were 60, and then we're like, oh my God, I'm dancing the dance, like we really figure it out. But if you had to do all those 60 years until you learn, it's not wasted, because you have an entire lifetime to say, oh my gosh, so good. There was a girl, never, obviously I haven't told it on this channel, so here's the first. There was a girl that I knew, a woman. She, we were both para-educators at a high school in California, and I had said something really dumb, like, it's not even worth repeating, it was so stupid, but it offended her, and I apologized to her, and she said, I don't have to accept your apology. And it made me sad. And later, I mean, a month later, she didn't care. And, like, we didn't talk about it. We didn't resolve anything. But she just forgave me, like I was invited to her birthday. We had a great time. We had a good time. And we're friends, like in that moment, we're friends. And it didn't matter the petty disagreement. But it took me many years to look back and say, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe it. It's actually a song by Feng Suave, Fengsuave, or Sauve, Suave. Anyway, nobody owes you closure. How I wish someone had told me that. And similarly with this young man, no one owes you an explanation for why you're wrong. No one owes you the closure of a relationship, even the long past relationships, or closure with your parents when they die. Like, they can't give that to you. You have to give it to yourself, and you have to accept these things as the truth in your reality and this existence. And so I've become very grateful, even for the moments that hurt me in an instant, and then somehow, still teach me today. We have a lot to learn, and we only learn by experiencing. We only learn by trying and failing and stumbling and being wrong. And God, have I been wrong. But I've been wrong for so many of the wrong reasons. And then I can turn and say, I thought I was right. I thought I was right. So it's okay to be wrong. But you have to live, and you have to try. And, trying is everything. But living life is the most important thing. You have to live, and you should live life in this moment. And you can appreciate it later on, contemplatively, not as a way to focus on what you did wrong or how you went wrong, but like just to Eckhart Tolle calls it he calls it clock time and psychological time. And so psychological time is I think he uses it, Tolle, clock time. I think clock time is used productively, and psychological time is just like avoid letting clock time slip into psychological time. Don't allow emotions from past events to influence your sense of self and impact you in the current moment. It's a tough task, but when you come into the reality that you're lingering and you're stuck on something, there needs to be some productivity in your ruminations. If you're gonna think about it, don't struggle with it. It should be working to accept that things are the way they are. They came out the way they came out. Now, must you suffer? Must you ridicule yourself? No, of course not. Of course not. But we can only go through the process of healing our wounds if we take time to think about them, not to linger on them, just to consider them. Oh, yeah, that happened that way. I had a moment the other day where I felt really dumb for having said something, and it's just a moment or a reaction. It wasn't a response, and reactions can have some really negative implications. But all that to say, Mistakes happen. And if you can have the humility to forgive yourself, and then maybe the courage to ask for forgiveness, that other person might give it. But ultimately, if they don't give it, you can accept that they weren't ready to forgive it. And you can forgive it. You can forgive yourself for your transgressions. That's what a lot of people on death row do, you know? They forgive themselves. They seek forgiveness, perhaps. They write the parents of the person they killed or whatever. But there's a path. There's a path to redemption. And it starts with you accepting that you did wrong. This is like 10 steps or 12 steps, whatever it is. Like, you gotta know that you did wrong, or that you made a mistake, and to accept it, and to live with it, and to not continue to suffer for yourself, you know? Like, what does it do? And so we have an opportunity to live life fearlessly. You know, that doesn't mean to not live with a sense of understanding that you can do wrong, but to know that you can also do right, and do right, and, you know, strive for something. Don't strive for perfection, just strive to be the best version of yourself in this and every moment. It's beautiful, beautiful. I gotta rest my voice. I'm just like hoarse. I'm getting better, but this is, you know, is it good to talk for 30 minutes? I don't think so. Probably not. All right. Well, that's about enough of this. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being here. I hope that this has been helpful to you. I hope that kid gets what he needs out of life and out of this conversation, you know, because there's always room to grow. I certainly learned something, and that's, you know, you can be blind to something, even if someone presents it to you as passionately and as compassionately, you know, to try to deliver some sense of what you're missing. And sometimes you can still not see it. And so always be open to the possibility that you're wrong, or that you don't see the full picture. And I certainly consider his conversation to be coming from a place of headstrong development, in which he needs a little bit of a refinement. He can get there. We can all get there. We're all growing. But you have to stop and look at the path behind you and envision what the path ahead of you is. So, all the best to you, and see you next time.